Alrighty everybody, and welcome back again from an all very too familiar ground in here as we're leaving again the downtown area Palatine, way behind in the distance, following to the left our Mannheim castle, which we had toured once before, and you got that all on the same channel. But we're taking now immediately the cut to the right to bringing you another piece, I would say just about as important as the Mannheim Palace, and we already have some part of it in the distance. Some of those buildings in the closer neighborhood are still very well preserved, although most of them had been damaged during World War II. Another unique style, a building from the area of when Palatine was once here, our capital, has turned now into a smash burger. Very tough to get a head-on front shot, as buildings are very close here to our very unique church at the Jesuitenkirche. And here is just one of the few, or we can say also more many of reasons why this church is of somewhat of importance. This during his times when he visited actually 4 times in Mannheim, he was definitely a regular in this church. Unfortunately, this tree cuts some of our sights, but here we are at the Jesuitenkirche, the Jesuit church, with its unique twin bell towers, which very interesting part of this church, as you will see from most of the parts. From the front side you will see the towers, as actually from the rear you will be able to see the dome. It's a little unfortunate about this church that it's not being blessed with its own little market square, or a little area of congregations. This happens to be the main entry site, and this is about as much as you can get out of this in the entrance. And I'm just going to take us a quick round tour, since it's already hanging in there, to telling you what awesome sights are yet to come. So everybody, as everything just happens to be in squares, blocks, you will find this unique building in A4. A particular interesting reason about that, because as our Electro Prince decided from his castle that his little town will be very easy to be constructed. It will be in squares and in alphabetical orders, and therefore in numbers. So this is the A block. There is the little bowl-shaped dome kind of tower with a unique cross on top. I would say definitely kind of majestic in its own ways and during its times. It really deserved more space than it's given. And giving you the full of the back part. This is the circular type of enclosure from the chapel that is now actually our rear part from the building, but in the church inside this will get you now towards the front. And on the top is this, so to speak, this bowl dome like top from the church. Taking this little tiny little street through it, we can see the main part, one of the towers in the back, and slightly moving up to the upper level. I said you can make more out of it now, of this dome bowl shape rear ending of the church. And the back part of it. And I believe, if I get this right, this must be on the rear part, slightly sitting in the back of the church, the observatorium, if I'm not mistaken, the only one in its original type surviving, where we were actually one point in time, I believe, looking at the stars. And now this gives us somewhat an entire view from the rear. And you find also this little pole with interesting historical facts about the Academy of Science, which is very interesting. Everything in here was once turning around the science and exploration of medicine and the uppers, the stars, and all these good things. I'm going to see if I can get a little history out of his. See if I get this right. We'll find this unique plate right here at the entrance. And this sign up here to the right, engraving, tells us it's the former Sternwarte, the observatorium, erected by Karl Theodor during the time of 1772 to 1774. And also about a kurfürstlich astronomer who was on duty. And I think he must have died at April 1783. So here's a little front look on that while we're looking at the back of the church. And right there from the observatorium, the Sternenwarte, we do get the church again in the back with this little half dome shape and half little bowl type on top. Like I said, it's a very unique structure. Pretty much nothing like it in any kind of ways. Two bell towers in front. But wait until you see the inside. Another good shot there from the side. And once again, if we simply look to the right, you'll see straight opposite from us the part of the palace. And it shows you again the connection between the Mannheim Palace and, of course, this unique church. And also the Lyceum that once stood here. Some little historical facts about that. And this all happens to be at the Platz, the Place. Approaching the church from the left to the entrance. And here we are to two important statues from Carl Philipp, the same gentleman you see at the palace on the left-hand side, the first man on site and pretty much the founder of our palace, and also the constructor of this church. And there happens to be on the right his son, Kurfürst Elector Karl Theodor of the Palatine, and as it happens to be later on, Bavaria. We remember at one point in time having a huge parade for electors been done from Bavaria at the Paradeplatz. Time to check the inner sides. So pretty much a few minutes ago we walked down behind the church, went a little bit further and we took a left. Now at B5 we're crossing over and we're taking a right. And the reason why we're doing this, we have another historical place somewhat very nearby, and that happens to be the Schillerhouse. Alrighty, hanging on down like a good old picture image of his. We do have now what's this representation of the Schillerhouse, the actual museum as it happens to be now, which houses some images and reminiscence and little historical pieces from that great poet here. And although this building is actually named at B57, the Schillerhouse, it's kind of confused, only a representation of what the actual place would have looked like. There was once a sister building here to the right at B58. This is now this type of newer building. That would be the actual location of the real Schillerhouse where he worked and wrote. He actually was also, just like good old Mozart, he spent here plenty of times, altogether around 10 years, wrote Die Räuber, the Bandits, and was actually quite active by doing so. So he would have been also quite very close to the church and to the palace in the back. Again, this is the newer building. This would have been the actual location of the real Schillerhouse, which obviously eventually, assumingly, got destroyed during World War II. And you literally turn around the block from B5 to B4. That's how easy Mannheim got it going for you in the downtown area. And you come now, what it's to be known, the Schillerplace. And here we are officially signed, commemorating Schillerplace, Friedrich von, Deutscher Dichter, German poet. And we do have a little more there for you. Coming back into the little bit of the shades, quite better temperature, so we appreciate that a little more. Before we see the statue of this great man, we are in Schillerplace, and here's a more newer type of a memorial commemoration of a representation for the Trümmerfrauen, which is represented to be known the rubble women. Those kind of women we have came across in all over the world, and I believe it's not just a local representation, but a representation to all the women that have helped cities to survive and strive and literally building things back together. So men usually were fallen during the wars or were had captivities or were just impossible to do any kind of work, and women were brought in and voluntarily in most cases to help. We'll try my best to have a translation for you on this. And again, on the corner of the memorial, you also see directly on the left side the Jesuitenkirche, the Jesuit church. Which we now have a little bit more of a detailed history there for you. Unfortunately, the sun gives us a little bit of reflection here. You see Elector Carl Philipp, the church in its original before the destruction around 1930. And the original architect, Alessandro Galli da Bibbiena. Well, it all has a little Italian flavor to it, doesn't it? Huh? While we know the architect of the palace was French. We actually come from the corner to the church, to the memorial. The park itself goes a little bit in a circle in a grassy area on the left-hand side, having a little playground, and it circles around and giving a little local park flavor. Also not really too far away from the Marktplatz and the Paradeplatz, which we have videos on there separately. Get a little swing to the left, another kiddie swing on the very left, And we approaching the man himself, a statue of a very young or close to middle-aged Friedrich Schiller. And there we have you the man in full size, which was actually in production from 1862, from engraving to foaming. And eventually he was put on post around 1864. And lived during the time from 1759 to 1805. And uniquely remains here standing, we assume, ever since 1864, so just about a little bit over 50 years after his passing. Now with its own Schillerplace, Schiller Park.